Hi girls, welcome to a short introductory lesson on the history and context of Megillat Esther. For the next few weeks we will be doing an in-depth study to the text in a lead up to Purim. There are two main themes that we're going to be exploring in this study. So the first theme over here, as I've demonstrated with this image, is we're going to actually understand how Torah Shebechtav is medayek, which means it is exact. From the words of the Megillah, the Chachamim have derived all the different mafarshim. So we're going to look closer at the wording of the Megillah, the text inside, and this will enable us to find the link to the explanations that we're learning. Second of all, we're going to be focusing on Hashgacha Pratis, as that is the main hashkafic theme that can be found within this story. So throughout this in-depth study, we're going to view the Megillah through this lens and see, most importantly, how we can relate Hashgacha Pratis to our daily lives. As you can see, this is a piece of a puzzle, right, that we only see one piece and that there's a hand of God working relentlessly behind the scenes. Before we go into detail, I'd like us to take a look at the overview of the entire Tanakh. So here we have Torah, over here, Nevi'im, and Kesuvim. If we work our way downwards on the Kesuvim, we can see that Esther fits in right about here. It's one of the books in Kesuvim, and here it is, okay? It's really important for us to understand the historical context, what was actually going on during the time period leading up to Megillat Esther. So there was ongoing strife. Over 100 years earlier, Sancheiriv had exiled the 10 Shvatim, and we'll talk about that shortly. And this was one of the very worst time periods of Jewish history. The Beis HaMikdash, which was the only symbol of hope to the Jews, it was central location, it was the center of everything, was in complete ruins. And there was one tiny glimmer that remained. And here we're going to take a look at Yirmiyahu's prophecy. And because he's the one that predicted, it says in Nevuah Shel Yirmiyahu, because he's the one that predicted the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So if we look inside over here, it says, "V'haita kol ha'aretz hazayis l'char v'l'shama." This whole entire land is going to be desolation and a waste. V'avdu ha'goyim ha'ela es melech Babel shivim shana. And Yirmiyahu is predicting that the nations were going to be serving the king of Babylon for 70 years. Pasuk Yud Beis. V'hayakim lois shivim shana efgad el melech Babel v'al ha'goy ha'hu ne'um Hashem es olam v'al eretz kazdim v'samti aisa lishmamais olam. And it shall come to pass that when the 70 years are finished, I'm going to punish the king of Babylon. Remember this because it's important. I'm going to punish the king of Babylon and the nation of the Babylonians, says Hashem, because of the things that they have done. And I will make it completely desolate. Babylon was that major empire. It was the United States of those days. And how it was known was going to be no longer. So here we have Yirmiyahu has predicted the absolute destruction of the Jewish nation, and that there's going to be, a new nationality that's going to be taking control of the world, and that's the Babylonians. And it seems to be quite a bleak prophecy for Bnei Israel, and it affects them greatly. It also affects the Babylonians, if this is the case. If Yirmiyahu's prophecy is true, then this also definitely affects the Babylonian kings, because, as you see here, it says that they're going to serve the Babylonian king for 70 years. So the Babylonian kings are also aware of them. We're going to talk about that now. If we look a little bit later, it says, Ki kaya mar Hashem, ki lefi melais leBabel shivim shana efkad, eschem hakimosi alechem al estivrei atayv la'ashiv eschem el hamakom hazeh. So Hashem is, Yirmiyahu again is giving over the Nebuah, saying that Hashem is predicting that after 70 years are over for Babylon, Hashem's going to remember us. He's going to remember the nation of Bnei Israel, and he's going to perform. He's going to do good for us once again, and he's going to bring us back to the Beis HaMikdash. He's going to bring us back to what it once was. So Yirmiyahu's prophecy is the only glimmer. It's a tiny little glimmer of hope that is remaining for Bnei Israel. Because if Yirmiyahu predicted the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and his prophecy came true, then people began to realize that, hold on a second, if he told us the Beis HaMikdash is being destroyed and that in fact happened, then it must be that the 70-year part is also true. It's not like half the prophecy is true and the other half is not. They both have to come true in order for the prophecy to be complete. So whilst we're living in this destruction and desolation right now, the glimmer of hope is that it's only a short term, it's temporary. After 70 years, Hashem's going to remember us, it says. Hashem's going to bring us back. He's going to bring us back el hamakom hazeh. And that is crucial. So Bnei Israel have been holding on to this hope for 70 years. And as we're going to see on the next slide, that the Babylonian kings are also quite wary of this prophecy. It's very, very well known. And it's the type of thing that is haunting their nightmares. So Yirmiyahu's prophecy was the cause of a ton of confusion. It was said in the year 3331, which is 430 BCE, and no one was able to interpret its exact meaning. No one knew when the 70 years began and when the 70 years finished. So, for example, prior to this prophecy, in the year 3319, 442 BCE over here, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, he defeated the king Melchizedek, and Nebuchadnezzar now became king. In 3321, which is 440 BCE, Yirmiyahu said his prophecy about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, where he spoke about what would happen in 70 years' time, that the nation would be restored and the Babylonian king would come to an end. Then we have in 3327, 434 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar exiles Melchizedek and the majority of the Jews. This is a really significant occurrence, so people are not sure, is this when the prophecy started? Is this the beginning of the 70 years? And finally, in the year 3338, in 423 BCE, it was the Beis HaMikdash was actually destroyed. So, was the 70 years from when Nebuchadnezzar became king? Was it from the prophecy was first declared? Was it after the Jews went into exile? Or was it from the date that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed? The Gentiles were also quite fearful of Hashem, and so this prophecy pertained to them as well. It had a great impact on them because they weren't sure, hold on, is my kingdom secure? If there's only 70 years that the Babylonians are going to be king, is their kingdom, whoever's king at the time, is the kingdom secure? So each king predicted a different time and celebrated in turn. As you can see, 70 years after Nebuchadnezzar defeated Melchizedek and becomes king, in the year 3389, so this date plus 70 years equals this date, Belshazzar was in his third year and he threw a massive banquet because he believed, similar to Achashverosh over here, but he believed that the 70 years were over and it was time for him to throw a massive celebration. Interestingly enough, during Belshazzar's third year banquet, he used the vessels of the Beis HaMikdash, just like Achashverosh did, which made him liable for death, according to the Torah. And this incident, there's a very famous event that occurs on this night, and it's talked about in Daniel. It's called the writing on the wall. And that's become a very, very common phrase in today's day and age, where you say you should read the writing on the wall. It means that you should see what's coming, know what's going on around you. So, for example, if you're in a job and they're trying to fire you, they're trying to look for ways to get to kick you out of that position, there are different signs, and we use the expression, you should read the writing on the wall, and that's actually where it comes from. But basically what happened was that during this massive banquet, there was actual handwriting that occurred. There was like a dismembered hand that was seen writing on the wall, and it wrote the words, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Uparsin, which means measured, weighed, and divided. And no one knew what that was about, what it was talking about. And all these different advisors, no one had any clue. And Daniel, the prophet, was summoned to interpret the meaning. And what he interpreted was, he said to them that Mene Mene means Hashem has numbered the days of your kingdom and it's bringing it to an end. You've been weighed on the scales and you've been found lacking. And so now your kingdom is going to be divided between the Medians and the Persians. And sure enough, that same night, Belshazzar was assassinated. And Darius in English, attacked Babylon and was victorious. Belshazzar's daughter, his name is Vashti, who you might recognize. She was 12 years old at the time and she was spared completely. They say that she ran into her father's room in the middle of the night. One interpretation of the story was that she ran into her father's room in the middle of the night, petrified because she heard, soldiers storming the palace. And she grabbed hold of the man that she saw standing there and was crying out saying, Father, what's going on? And that was actually not her father. It wasn't Belshazzar. Belshazzar was already dead. It was Darius. And Darius took pity on this beautiful 12-year-old girl and he spared her life and took her home to marry his very own grandson, who, according to this medrash, is Achashverosh. Hence, Vashti and Achashverosh got married. And we'll see that during their own banquet, when Achashverosh begs Vashti to come wearing the royal crown, she makes a reference to her grandfather Belshazzar and his noble nature. When Vashti was 18, she got married. Well, anyway, so 70 years from this event, Belshazzar believes the 70 years are over and it's a time for celebration, right? The God of the Jews has for sure forsaken them, and he doesn't live to survive the night. Next, we have from the time when Yirmiyahu's prophecy about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, when he gave that prophecy, 70 years later, we have 3391, 370 BC. Darius begins the building of the Beis HaMikdash, but that was stopped short, and we'll see a little bit later that because the following year he dies, and with his death, the Beis Hamikdash stopped being rebuilt. He was smart enough to realize that he should get on side with the Jews, but it was stopped, and Achashverosh takes over. And we know that Haman was one of the advisors that traveled all the way, and we'll talk about that when we're on the Mepharshim, but he made every great effort. He went to great lengths to try and halt the building of the Beis Hamikdash. Then we have 70 years from 3327 from when Nebuchadnezzar actually did exile Melchiah and the majority of the Jews. Achashverosh makes his banquet in his third year because he believes, according to his advisors and their calculations, that the 70 years are now over. Of course, he wasn't correct. And he too, like Belshazzar, wore the big day kahuna and used the vessels of the Beis HaMikdash, and he gets in trouble for that. But really, in essence, the 70 years began, as we can see, with when the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. That was the beginning of the 70 years. And we know, in fact, 70 years later, Daryavesh II, who is the child of Achashverosh and Esther, Daryavesh II actually rebuilds the Beis HaMikdash. He's only 6 years old at the time when he begins the building, but he was wise beyond his years, and he ordered for the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash and the return of Bnei Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael. So here we see that this is going to make us understand a whole lot of what was going on when we enter into the story, and it's Achashverosh's banquet. And later on, when we meet Daryavesh or Darius II, this gives us a better understanding of what was going on. What was this heavy cloud that was hanging over the rulers of Babylon, and why they felt the need to be going according to Yirmiyahu's prophecy, which spoke about the 70 years. And with that, we can now begin with the very first words of the Megillah, where we'll analyze them closely in school. Looking forward to seeing you in class.